The light on your face tonight isn't a fire. For almost all of human history, the last light of the day was flame, and around it there were always other faces. People sat down, shoulder to shoulder, and the day ended there, together. Now the last thing you look at before you sleep is usually a screen, one more thing left unfinished, a work message that arrives at the hour that used to belong to something else. Somewhere along the way, we traded the fire for work, and now there's almost nowhere left that truly keeps us warm. Let me tell you why that quietly aches, even though we rarely name it. Our ancestors worked too. They hunted, they gathered, they built, they mended, but their work had one thing ours has almost completely lost: an edge, a place where it ended. When the basket was full, you stopped picking. When the animal was down, you carried it home. When the sun set, the hunt was over. Every day closed itself. Every day reached a point where the body was allowed to say, "That's enough." And on the far side of that edge was a stretch of time that was almost untouchable. The evening, the hours of the fire, the hours for being with each other. So if you come home tonight with nothing left to give anyone, that doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you've forgotten how to love people. The edge that used to close the day for you has been quietly removed. Modern work doesn't have that line. It's never full, never finished, never dark. It just keeps growing. And when something never stops on its own, it spills. It spills into the very hours that once belonged to the fire. You didn't abandon that circle. You were pushed out of it, one evening at a time, so slowly you never noticed. And I want you to see how precious that circle really was. In 2014, an anthropologist named Polly Wiesner published a study. She recorded hundreds of conversations among a community of hunter-gatherers in southern Africa, people who still live close to the way our ancestors did. And she compared what they talked about in the daytime with what they talked about at night. During the day, most of it was practical, but she noticed something beautiful. Firelight added about 4 extra hours to each day. Hours that didn't touch the work of finding food. Hours set aside for one thing only: being together. And in those hours, more than 80% of what they said was stories. Stories about ancestors, about faraway places, stories that made the whole group laugh, that healed the small wounds of the day. Wiesner believes this is where it happened. There, by the fire, after the day's work was done, is where human imagination and culture were born. So notice this. The evening together was never the leftover scraps at the end of a working day. It was protected time, and it is the very thing that made us human. So that pull you feel, the one that wants company when the day is over, the one that wants someone to sit beside when it gets dark, that isn't weakness, it isn't laziness. It's one of the most beautiful forces inside you. The same force that built villages and songs passed down for generations and 1,000 nights of stories. There's an old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We were built to go far. The problem was never that you stopped loving your people. The problem is only that the bridge to your evenings with them got taken by work. But if work has eaten the evening, then why do we put up with it? Why don't we feel so empty that we stand up and change something? Because every night there's still something that gives us the feeling of being near someone. It glows right there in the palm of your hand. It looks almost like a fire. And that is exactly where everything starts to go wrong.
Think about what your brain is actually hungry for when it gets dark. It isn't hungry for a career. It's hungry for the feeling of someone close by, to be seen, to be known a little. That's what the fire gave us every single night. And the screen in your hand knows that. It was designed to reach straight for that spot. Every notification is a face turning toward you. Every like is a nod from the circle. Every reply is a voice in the dark calling back, "I'm still here. You're not alone." And it comes instantly. It's easy. You don't have to put on a coat and leave the house. You don't have to wait. You don't have to risk a conversation that might get awkward. You just touch a finger to the glass and the circle lights up. Here's the problem. Real connection doesn't work that way. It's slow. Its reward comes late. A friendship built over 100 ordinary evenings has no single moment that stands out. An evening with someone you love usually gives you no instant hit at all. It just quietly builds something you won't feel the weight of until years later. The screen pays you back in a second. So night after night, worn out from a day of work that had no edge, we reach for the fast thing. We tell ourselves we're still connecting. Look, I just messaged 5 people. But the real fire, the one with a living person sitting beside it, keeps going cold. We warm our hands over a picture of a fire, and we wonder why we still feel cold. And this is worth stopping for. There's a study at Harvard that has followed the same group of people for more than 85 years. It began in 1938, and it tracked more than 700 human beings across their entire lives, youth, careers, marriages, old age, writing down their health and their happiness at every stage. It's one of the longest studies of human life ever done, and after all those years, the clearest finding wasn't money, it wasn't fame, it wasn't the career that so many of them traded their evenings to climb. The thing that best predicted who would grow old, healthy, and happy, and who wouldn't, was the quality of their relationships. The people who were most satisfied with their close bonds at 50 were the healthiest at 80. Not the ones with the best cholesterol, not the ones who earned the most, the ones who had real people beside them. Listen closely to this, because it turns everything we're taught upside down. All our lives we're told that work is the serious thing, and time together is the luxury, the reward we give ourselves once the important things are done. This study says the opposite. Those relationships aren't the reward for a good life. They are what makes a life good. They are the important thing. And that's exactly what we traded away. We traded the fire for work, and the thing we handed over turns out to be the one thing 85 years of science says will still be keeping us warm at the very end. The question is why? Why we'd trade away something that precious and feel like we had no choice? To answer that, we have to look at one small thing we tell ourselves, usually without words. The small thing we tell ourselves, usually without words, sounds like this. I'll make time for people once the work is done. It's the thing you say while you answer one last email and dinner goes cold on the table. It's the just a minute to your child, and then the minute stretches into an hour. It's the old friend you meant to call this weekend until the to-do list won. It sounds so reasonable it's almost invisible, but underneath it is a deeper belief, and that belief is what keeps us stuck. That my place by the fire is something I have to deserve, something I have to earn with what I do.
The psychologist Alfred Adler had a very human way of seeing this. He believed most of us grow up carrying a quiet sense that we aren't quite enough, a feeling of being small, of falling short. And to make up for it, we go looking for a way to prove our worth. For a lot of people today, that way is work. If I'm useful enough, if I get enough done, then I'll be kept, I'll be loved. Notice this small feeling. When you clear out your inbox, there's a little flicker of relief, almost of worth. I just earned something. But when you sit still on the couch on a free evening, there's a restlessness you can't quite name, as if you're getting away with something. That restlessness is the old belief speaking. I haven't earned the right to rest yet. Some people stay late at work, not because anything is urgent, but because leaving on time feels like cheating. You see the trap. If deep down you believe you have to earn your seat by the fire, you'll never let yourself just sit down and be there. There will always be one more thing to do first. So hear this clearly. Your endless busyness usually isn't a lack of discipline. It isn't that you love work too much. It's a form of self-protection. It's how you try to keep yourself safe from a very old fear. The fear that if you stop proving yourself, you'll stop being needed. But here's a distinction that changes everything once you catch it. There's a difference between working to provide for the people you love and using work to avoid sitting down beside them. From the outside, they look identical, same hard-working person. But let me show you how they come apart. Cooking dinner so the whole family sits down to eat, that's tending the fire. But cooking an elaborate dinner and then eating it standing up, eyes still on your work messages, that's using the meal to replace the fire. Sitting at the table with your mind still at the office, your body's there but you aren't. Sitting at the edge of your kid's game, head down answering email the whole time, you're there and you're also not there. Cleaning the house all evening to take care of the family instead of sitting down and talking with the actual family for 15 minutes, same love underneath, but once it loses its edge, it quietly becomes the very thing that keeps you away from the people you're doing it for. Think of the father who works himself to the bone his whole life to give his child a good life and misses the child's actual life in the process. He isn't wrong for working, he just made one mistake. He believed the work was the love, instead of remembering that the work is only a way to show the love. And love, in the end, needs an evening. It needs you to be there. Because here's the truth the old belief hides from you. You don't have to earn your seat by the fire. You already have it. You belong there not because of what you finish, but because you show up. You don't send your friends an invoice for your presence. The people you love don't love you by the number of tasks you checked off this week. Adler called this pull toward others, this wish to contribute to the shared life around us, the most natural and healthy thing in a person. And the biggest gift you can give the people you love is usually not one more thing you do for them. It's just to sit down, to be there, to actually be present. So if someone needs to hear this tonight, you're allowed to stop. Not because you've done enough, but because it's you and not your output that the people around you actually want. You're already enough to be with them, right now, exactly as you are. And this isn't only about feelings, it leaves its mark on the body.
There's a true story that puzzled researchers for years. In the early 1960s, a doctor in a small town called Roseto, Pennsylvania, told a researcher named Stuart Wolf something strange. The people here almost never had heart attacks. Wolf was curious, so he went digging through the records, and it was true. Deaths from heart disease in Roseto were about half the rate of the towns around it. The strange part was that the people of Roseto still smoked, they still ate plenty of fat, they still drank wine. By every health rule we know, they should have been sicker, not healthier. He went looking for the reason. It wasn't in their genes because relatives who moved away had ordinary rates of heart disease. It wasn't the diet. In the end, the thing that made Roseto different was almost absurdly simple. They were almost never alone. They lived in 3-generation homes. On the walk back from work, people stopped in at each other's houses. They gathered, they cooked together, they carried each other when someone was struggling. In Roseto, there was no keeping up with the neighbors. There was just a dense, warm circle of people sitting beside each other night after night. And here's how the story ends, in a way that fits everything we've said. Over the decades that followed, Roseto modernized. People began to live more separately, chasing individual success, fencing the yards, closing the doors, moving the fire indoors into each separate house. And their heart disease climbed until it matched the towns around them exactly. The circle dissolved, and the shield dissolved with it. They too had traded the fire for something else, and their bodies kept the record. You don't have to move to a small town to have what Roseto had. You just need the small thing they did every day without even thinking. Stop by, sit down, be there. So before we close, let me give you 3 questions. Don't answer them for me, answer them for yourself, tonight. The first, did my work today have a stopping point, or did I let it keep growing until it swallowed the evening? The second, am I working to provide for the people I love, or am I using work to avoid sitting down beside them? The third, when was the last time I ate a dinner with no screen, with a living, breathing person? If that last one made you pause, it isn't an accusation, it's an invitation. Tonight, choose an hour to let the fire of work go out. Not when everything is finished, because it never will be. Just pick an hour and let it end. Then light a real one, a meal, a conversation, one person, the phone face down, the work set aside, and your face lit this time, not by a screen, but by someone who is really sitting there with you. So look at what we traded. You have 500 friends. They had 20, but those 20 knew your name from the day you were born. You text, "Let's grab coffee sometime," and no one ever goes. They didn't schedule coffee, they just walk next door. You scroll past hundreds of faces every night. They sat in front of theirs. They didn't tell stories because they were bored, they told stories because that was the time for being together. And you connect if you can find a little time after work. Here's what I want you to take with you. You are not broken. That pull in you to be near other people isn't damaged. It's still there, as strong as the first night our ancestors sat around a flame. It's just that the world built a light that imitates the fire, and a kind of work that never goes out. We traded the fire for work. We traded the evening for productivity. We traded real faces for glowing ones. But here's the gentlest part. The fire didn't disappear. It's only waiting to be lit. It's waiting in the meal you could linger over 5 minutes longer, waiting in the call you keep putting off, waiting in the empty chair beside the person you live with and haven't really looked at in a long while. The work will still be there in the morning. It's always there. The people won't be. So tonight, let one fire go out and light another, the one you have never, deep down, stopped longing for. If this reached you, follow along. I'm here every week helping you understand the things about yourself you thought you already understood. And tonight, just tonight, let that empty chair be filled.